Sage Software has over 50,000 construction and real estate customers. It is not just a market the company works in, it is who they are. With over 40 years of experience in the market, Sage is in a unique position to deliver the next generation of web-based ERP software to the industry. Because of Sage's knowledge and industry market share, products you already use are racing to the marketplace to partner with Sage. Using open APIs available in Intacct, these companies have developed automated, seamless integrations. Reliability and safety of your data are an important part of any ERP. Sage guarantees a 99.8% uptime to the software. The system allows for extra capacity to guarantee the software always performs proficiently. Your data is backed up regularly and stored in multiple locations. Sage is SOC 1 and SOC 2 compliant. To this day, Sage has never had a successful malware attack. Sage Intacct has 4 major enhancement releases a year. Unlike traditional server-based softwares in many ERPs, these releases are seamless. You no longer have to have IT involved. You no longer need to reboot your servers and workstations. Your employees will come in the next day and have access to the upgraded versions. There is not a loss of productivity for your company with the upgrades. Intacct wins numerous awards. Sage Intacct is the only preferred provider of the AI CPA. The software is #1 in customer satisfaction and is ranked a visionary in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. It is important to understand that Intacct is a true dimensional software. A dimension is not just a field in the software. Dimensions allow Intacct to catalog transactions in a more proficient way. This allows users to enter information and report on it in ways that are meaningful. With dimensions, users often find they no longer need to create reports outside the software. Now let's take a look at some features in Intacct that can help your company be more productive. From the moment you log into Intacct, you are greeted with information that is integral to your position. Intacct's customizable dashboards allow each user to obtain all the information they need in one place. They include reports, as you can see here, with a P&L, month over month, budget versus actual. We can embed webcams and other web pages, charts and graphs, and everything is drill down capable. Here's one that's more project driven. As you can see here, we can conditionally format these reports so that you can see things that may need your attention right away. We can have a profit and loss by job and a profit and loss by customer because of those dimensions. You can also have charts and graphs and other embedded reports. Across the top here, you can see where we can start using our dimensions. The first thing I'll draw to your attention is the date. Intacct does not archive information, making all information, no matter how old, easily accessible. If you wanted to see this for June of 2020, you could just click on it and apply, and that quickly it will refresh and give you the information from that date and time. We can also start using those dimensions. Maybe you only want jobs from a certain company. Or maybe you want jobs from a certain company and a certain type of project. The information in Sage Intacct is easily accessible. We could even sort this by an employee if we needed to. I mentioned earlier that we could drill down into the cost. If I go right here, you can see I'm starting to drill down. I can see all the cost of goods for labor and material. I could drill in deeper, seeing what makes that up. Maybe there's a problem. Maybe we see that A1 Electric Company's on this job and it shouldn't be. We want to see what that is. We can easily see that it's this invoice, and with a click of a button, be in the transaction itself. Be able to open up the attachments and see what we may have done wrong. Within 3 clicks, I went from a total cost of a job down to a transaction. Everything we're going to see today is controlled by security. It is roles-based security inside of Intacct and very easy to set up. We set up our roles, and then within the roles themselves, we tell it what that role can do, what applications they can get into, and then with checkboxes, what they're allowed to do inside that application. Makes it very easy to set up users in the system and get them started. Let's check out Sage's modern application layout. Up here on the top, you can see I'm at a top level. The top level is an automatic consolidated level where we can do transactions for any company and see reporting for any company. Below that are our entities. And below that, we can have departments, classes. You have a very detailed reporting level within inside of Intacct. Applications are easily accessed through a drop-down menu. If we go up here and look at accounts payable, you can see we have an all-in setup. The all is where we go to do things, enter things, run reports, and setup is where we configure the module. We can also add things to our favorites menu just by clicking on the star that's associated with it. It gives us a quick list of all the things we do all the time. Also, you have the ability inside the system to be able to look at things from a more visual aspect. So if you like that more QuickBooks look and feel, you can have that inside the system, making it very user-friendly. Now let's highlight the technology of Sage Intacct. How easy is it to find information in the system? With Sage's global search capabilities, we can easily find transactions. We can search for names, dollar figures, invoices, or even strings of text. It searches through the entire transaction to find this information, not just the top level. So you no longer need to know things like an invoice number or a vendor ID or project ID. Let's search for a transaction. We're going to search for something $5,600. We could search specific transactions, find like the bills or GL entries. In this case, I'm going to let it search the entire system. And at this time, it's looking through all my companies. It's looking through all the transactions. And in a matter of seconds, it's going to return information from purchasing, from inventory, from GL, from AP, and allow us to view that information, as you can see here. And as you can see, I have those GL entries. I have AP bills where the total bill was $5,600, but I mentioned that it looks through the entire transaction. If we scroll down, we can see a few more bills where a distribution line inside of the invoice also had $5,600. It showed me those also. And once we find the information we want to see, we can easily drill into it, going directly to the document. This is not another inquiry below this showing me more information. It is taking me to the actual transaction so that I can view it. Everything in blue is drill down capable. So I can see all the information. I can see it was paid in full, printed with this check. I can see attachments. I can open up those attachments. And these are true attachments. These aren't links to a document on your server or somewhere. These are actual attachments within the system. I can very easily open them up and view them as I'm looking through the document. Down below, you can see our transaction distribution. And below that, we actually have a chat feature built inside of Intacct, allowing us to communicate internally with other users in the system about documents within the system. Above, we can see the history, who created it, who last modified it, and we can even see a further audit trail of what actually happened. So you can see when the date was fully paid. You can see here due date information and have complete audit trail capability by the user. Before we move on, let's discuss some of the more administrative items available inside of Intacct. Intacct allows you to import a lot of information. This is different than those integrations I talked about earlier. These are imports. Those use APIs and directly write to the system. So within the system, we have the availability to import a lot of information. This can help with your setup and even help with your workflow. Maybe you're importing journal transactions. But you can see we can do everything from chart of accounts and your entities and employees to the journal transactions or even AP bills. Intacct also allows us to do intercompany transactions. And this is a very robust feature inside of Intacct. As I look at this, most softwares are set up at this basic level, where each entity has a due to and due from account. The problem with that is if I ran a balance sheet for company 100, I would have no idea of which company owed me the money. Intacct has increased the availability to get this information by offering an advanced intercompany plan, where we can actually define, depending on which company is integrating with which company, what GL accounts happen. Once this is set up, it automatically happens in the background for you. This gives us better reporting at the end. We also have the ability to create something called dimension groups. This will help us in reporting on those dashboards everywhere through the system. It allows us to predefine some consolidations within the system. Maybe you have 5 or 6 entities and you want to be able to consolidate 2 of them in reporting. We can come right here, set up a name for that grouping, and then inside the group, we just tell it which entities we want to have on it. It's that easy. Intacct's project management feature set is robust and powerful. Intacct uses a parent-child relationship for their jobs. This allows for easier tracking of jobs with multiple phases, buildings, or floors. You're able to report and bill off of any one of these levels. Within the job, you will find a lot of information. We can see the customer, the shipping contacts, project managers. We can see information about observers and completes, locations as entity that the job's for. We can also see summary information. How much have we spent on materials, labor costs, subcontract costs, and how much we billed to date. Over here, we can see the budgets. As you can see on the screen, we can have multiple budgets inside of Intacct and can report off of any one of them. These can be imported or they can be entered. We also have an ASG query that allows you to see all the change orders, purchase orders, subcontracts, contract information for the job. Once we've created the job, we can buy it out. With Intacct's architecture, we're allowed to define that workflow. Using transaction definitions, the user is allowed to define how a commitment moves through the system. Maybe you want to use purchase orders and then have to do a receipt before you can do an invoice. Maybe you even want to use purchase requisitions and then turn them into purchase orders. All of that functionality is available inside of Intacct. You'll only see what you want to see in the workflow you want. Once those workflows are set up, we can set up the actual subcontracts and purchase orders. In a subcontract or purchase order, we can look at these and view all the information and all the audit details about this commitment. From the screen, we can see the original setup. You have the ability to enter scope information, bond information, multiple lines of distribution. We have our chat feature. Across the top, we can see if there were change orders. They're in blue, so you can open it up and see what that change order was. We can see the history of this purchase order or subcontract. We can see who created it, who modified it. Was it printed and sent? Who was it sent by? We can see the subcontract and the change orders. We can see all the invoices that have come in against it and view any one of these at any given time. giving us complete information and history into the system. We can also see the audit trail information, seeing what fields changed when they changed. Within the product, you can also set up contracts. You have the ability to set up T&M and AIA type contracts, creating your schedule of values. Once that's done, you can use the worksheet to build the project and actually generate an AIA type document. You can see we have that 702 and 703 type format automatically generated out of the system. It can be printed or emailed directly out of the system. Intacct also has full change order functionality with change requests and change orders, and multiple change requests or a single change request becoming a change order itself. As you can see here, allowing you to update your contract. Intacct's dimension architecture allows for a more simplified GL. You no longer need to have a company be part of the account structure. You can have statistical journals, allowing you to enter non-financial information like headcounts or total square foot of jobs into the system and then report off of it financially. When we look at the journal transactions, you can see that we can easily create a journal transaction. We can also easily have the journal transaction affect the job cost without having to go into something like a direct cost module. We can do it from right here, making journal entries for things like an outside payroll that much easier. We can also create auto-reversing entries. Within the entries themselves, we can have those do automatic intercompany entries. Moving things from one company to another automatically created these entries. You'll also notice this outlier. Intacct's General Ledger has outlier detection. Using AI and machine learning, it learns what a transaction is supposed to look like and then calls out when there's something that doesn't quite meet those specs, allowing you to make less errors inside the system. We can see that in the history where I submitted this transaction and then it was declined by the outlier assistant. We can also do basic budgets in the software. You can have multiple budgets in a single year. Within the budget details, we can have budgets for every company set up. And within the budget, we do our month by month budget, allowing us to get that budget versus actual reporting. Intacct's financial reporting is easy to use and where we can see the true power of dimensional reporting. Intacct comes with all of these financials preloaded for you. Multiple ways to run balance sheets, cash flows, profit and losses. But let's take a look inside of one of these. Here is a simple balance sheet. We'll go ahead and preview this online here. And you can see it's a year-over-year balance sheet. Let's make some changes to this. Let's go to our columns because we'd like to see a variance. So we want to summarize these two columns. We'll go here and say add a column to the right. We'll change it from an actual to just a summary. And we'll go in here and tell it how to summarize this. So we want the two columns to subtract. We'll go right here and say subtract 2 and 3. So now we're going to have a variance. So let's name that variance. We'll use the caps there. And then down below, let's go ahead and do that conditional formatting that we saw earlier. We'll go in here and maybe anything greater than $5,000, we want it to turn red. And we'll set that. Now we're done with that column. Let's talk about the dimensional reporting. You saw how we saw a normal balance sheet with our accounts receivable or inventory or AP, but we want some more details on that. We want to understand it from a dimensional standpoint, in multiple dimensions, in multiple ways. So we're going to come in here and just click right here where it says details and tell it we want to summarize this and expand it by dimension. Now we can expand accounts receivable by any of our dimensions. We could expand it by customer or jobs. Let's go ahead and do it by job. Now notice it only changed this one thing. It didn't change the whole report. This is not a filter or sort. So we could go down to something like inventory if you're using an inventory module, and maybe you want to expand that by the items in inventory. Maybe we want to go to accounts payable and have that expanded completely different. Maybe we want to have that done by vendor. So in this case, I am actually changing the way every one of these accounts presents itself to me. This is something that you would normally have to run multiple reports for and probably go into something like Excel and try to combine them together. In Intacct, you saw how easily I was able to add columns and adjust these rows. And that's simply, I now have a year-over-year balance sheet with accounts receivable broken out by job, inventory broken out by those items, and accounts payable broken out by my vendors. And you can see all the red where anything's greater than $5,000. It's that simple, yet that powerful to use report designing inside of Intacct.